Okay. Good. Need this.
You want to kick it off or you want me to?
I'll let
Okay. Well, I think everybody's here. Welcome to this exciting time that we have to serve on the Formula Advisory Committee. My name is Penny Harkey. I'm from Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center, and I was the chair of the Formula Advisory Committee last year. The first item on the agenda is just to go around the room and introduce ourselves. And if you could introduce yourself and say what role you play at the institution that you are from, and then if you have served on the Formula Advisory Committee in the past. If we could start with those that are on the phone.
Penny, I'll start. This is Rick Lang. I'm the president of Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center in El Paso, and I have served on the committee previously for now about 4 years.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Lang. Jenny, anybody else on the phone?
I am Jenny Gomez-Leon from the UT Health Science Center in San Antonio, and my current role is Associate Vice President for Budget and Financial Planning.
Lauren Shear with UTMB. I am the Vice President for Legislative Affairs at UTMB, and this is my second time serving on the HRI FAC.
Ben Melson, Chief Financial Officer at MD Anderson, and this is my second time to serve as well.
Angelica Marine Hill, excuse my voice, sorry. I'm Vice President for Government Affairs and Policy at UT Southwestern, and I've served on the committee since 2013.
Okay.
Dwayne Morris, the University of Texas at Austin Dell Medical School. I'm the Chief Financial and Administrative Officer, and this will be my second time.
Okay.
I'm Greg Anderson. I'm the Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations at the UNT Health Science Center, and I served one other time as well.
I'm the new kid on the block. I'm Paula Myrick Short. I'm Senior Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Provost at the University of Houston and Senior Vice Chancellor of the UH system. We have a new medical school coming on board, the College of Medicine I've helped establish, and the Dean of our new College of Medicine reports to me as Provost, so I'm very involved in getting that up and running. So I did serve twice on the General Funding Committee. This is my first time on this one, so I look forward to it.
I'm Jeff Burton with Texas A&M University Health Science Center, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer there. This is my first time to work on the committee. I've been attending numerous of them over many years, but it's the first time to actually sit on the committee.
Okay.
And I'm David Young, Senior Director of Funding at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And I'm filling in for Ed, who's out sick.
Okay. And we have two members, I believe, that are not here. Joseph, is it Walkers from UT, University of Texas Health Science Center at Tyler, and Rick Anderson from UT RGV Medical School. And Kevin Dillon is also not here from UT Health Science Center, Houston. So we have three members that are actually not here with us today. So, all right, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. The first order of business is election of the chair, vice chair, and secretary of the committee. And do we have any nominations for chair of the committee?
I would, Madam Chair, like to nominate Mr. Jeff Burton to chair of the committee.
Okay, Jeff Burton has been nominated. Any other nominations? Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Jeff will serve as chair, and he actually had agreed to that ahead of time. So,
Not a complete surprise.
So now, Jeff, it's your turn. So for
All right. I guess they do this to the new people on the block.
yeah, that was my first time. I was brand new.
She was brand new last
year.
time. I'll be brand new this time. All right. The second item of business is to nominate a vice chair for our committee. Are there any nominations?
This is Rick Lang. I'd like to nominate Penny Harkey.
I'll second.
All right. Any other nominations? If not, we will vote on Penny Harkey as the vice chair of the committee. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next, we will election of the secretary for the committee. I'd like to open up the floor for nominations for secretary.
I'd like to nominate Lauren Shear. Mainly, the primary purpose of that position is to take minutes, and they're actually recording it, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
All right, Lauren is our secretary. Very good. Okay, we will move on now to agenda item number 3, the briefing on the health-related institutions funding formula. And I believe Penny is going to provide that summary for us.
Typically, the coordinating board does that, and Ed would be the one to provide the briefing, but since he is out, then he and David asked me to provide that briefing. And to use as the briefing document, if you would take a look at your charge document, that's probably the best document to consider. This document provides the background. You know, we had not been under formula funding until the 2000-2001 biennium. Graduate medical education formula came later than that. 2 years ago, this is the second biennium that we have had general academic institutions, the School of Medicine at general academic institutions for UT Austin and Dell Medical Center and UTRGV that have been funded through the health-related institution formula. So this current biennium that we are in is the second biennium that has happened. So if you look, we'll go through each of these, and I also will talk about a little bit about what the result of the formula of the legislative session was for each of these formulas. The first one is our I&O formula, our instruction and operations formula. That one is based on weighted FTEs. Our students, our semester credit hours are converted to an FTE, and then a weight is applied to that, and you can see that on the second page, based on whichever discipline they are in. Medicine and dental are actually all simply at a 1 FTE for each student. So that is different. They are not calculated on a semester credit hour basis. So there is one component that is based on a weighted student FTE. The other is based on a small class supplement that is on a sliding scale depending on how many students are in each of the programs. For medical and dental, it's at a $30,000 sliding scale. For all other programs, it's a $20,000 sliding scale. So the closer you get to an enrollment of 200, the less you get per student. And once you reach an enrollment of 200 students, you no longer get small class supplement funding for the I&O formula. Our rates this current biennium are $9,622 per weighted FTE. That is an increase of 2% from last biennium, which was at $9,431. So we were very fortunate that the legislature funded growth, so at least our rates did not go down, and we got a 2% increase in our funding rates for the current biennium. That is the largest of all of our formulas at almost $1.3 billion in the I&O formula for the health-related institutions. Questions on the I&O formula before I go forward? In the materials that were sent out from the coordinating board, Ed provided a spreadsheet that had the calculations, so you can go in and see if you want to, if you haven't already, or those others, exactly how that's calculated for each of the institutions. Infrastructure is based on the predicted square footage model for health-related institutions, and those are the 5 factors that are considered in that particular formula. They funded growth, Our previous rate was $6.11, and now it is $6.14 per predicted square footage. So a slight increase. That particular formula has had a tendency to go down in the past. So to fund growth was very significant. There's some discussion because there is in the formula, that second piece of it is where it's talking about multi-campus adjustment. That piece is a part of the space prediction model. It's not a part of the formula that that the legislature includes. It's part of the space prediction model. So, questions on the infrastructure model? Okay. The third, which was originally we had these three formulas, the research enhancement formula. The research enhancement formula, every institution gets a base formula of $1,412,500, regardless of how many research expenditures that you have. And in addition to that, currently it's 1.18% of the research expenditures that were reported to the coordinating board. That is up slightly from 1.16% of what was reported to the coordinating board. Both the infrastructure and the research are close in the amount of funding that is in each of those at, I believe, about 80, no, the research is $84.5 million. Questions on research? Mission specific was probably the biggest change that occurred during the legislative session. So this outlines the dollar amounts that are in there. In addition to that is, if you would go and look in the rider of the appropriation bill, there's explanations about the individual formulas, how that's calculated and that sort of thing. And I'm sure that may be something we want to look at as we go forward and discuss the mission specific. So it's all new to us, except for previously we had MD Anderson and UT Health Science Center at Tyler had mission specific, and there were four other mission specifics that were added during the current biennium. My understanding, talking to Trevor, is that a big portion of this was due to reallocation of existing non-formula items, and then there was additional funding added into 3 of the institutions to create this formula funding pool. And do y'all know Trevor? We didn't introduce, this is Trevor Simmons. He's from the Legislative Budget Board, and he knows more details about those if y'all have any questions. So
I don't have a question, but would it be worth noting that this chart here kind of represents the total funding, but it doesn't represent the net new funding? Because if you mentioned that there was some special item formula that was folded into these formulas, these mission-specific formulas. So would it be more appropriate to identify what the net new change?
This doesn't show the net new.
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
right. So my understanding is, see if this seems right, that UT Southwestern Medical Center had reallocation plus about $14 million for the biennium. Does that sound right?
Correct. So 100.4 million was existing
Right.
non-formulas.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Galveston, UTMB at Galveston, that was a complete reallocation, is my understanding. There was no new funding added for that. Both Houston and San Antonio had new funding of $13 million apiece added to their formulas. So, okay. And of course, those are 2-year numbers. So,
Correct.
okay. Graduate medical education. That is based on, each of us has to report our number of resident physicians to the coordinating board, and this is based on the number that is submitted to the coordinating board for our resident physicians. And currently, it's an increase of 2.5% from 5 $5,824 to $5,970 in the current biennium. And that's the one is always, it's very close to the research. It's $81.3 million. So, questions so far on what we have for the formula funding? Okay.
All right, thank you, Penny. Very helpful. I had in my notes that maybe Trevor was going to talk a little bit more about this mission specific. Is that,
I don't have
prepared to
anything
do that, or
prepared,
is
but I
that?
can certainly answer any questions you might have.
Okay. All right, any questions for mission specific? All right, if not, we will move forward to agenda item number 4, discussion of the commissioner's charges to the committee. The commissioner's charge is to conduct an open public process providing opportunities for all interested persons, institutions, organizations that desire to provide input on formula funding issues to do so. And at the end of the process, the Health-Related Institution Formula Advisory Committee should provide the commissioner with a written report of the committee's recommendations by December 15th, 2019 on the following specific charges. Number 1, study and make recommendations for the appropriate funding levels for the instruction and operation, infrastructure, research enhancement, graduate medical education, and mission-specific formulas. Number 2, study and make recommendations for the appropriate I&O formula weights. And number 3, study and make recommendations for the inclusion and weight of specialty programs in the I&O formula. And that is the commissioner's charge.
And there is one additional.
There's an additional charge.
Were you aware of that?
No.
My apologies. I guess Ed left it off the material.
All right, it is study and make recommendations regarding the funding of students pursuing dual degrees.
Oh, I know
That
that
was-
one.
yeah, you know that one.
I do know that one.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we have extra work ahead of us now.
Well, and I can explain what that one is, because that one actually came from a request from me. We have the situation, and it's morphed over time because the formulas have been in place since the early 2000s. So here's the situation. You have a medical school student who is enrolled in medical school. They get funding at 1, regardless of how many semester credit hours that they take. So they're counted as 1 FTE. That student is also enrolled in a public health degree program, and at the same time. So they're concurrently enrolled in a public health degree program, and because of the coordinating board, well, it's really a limitation on the coordinating board reporting. When we report on the CBM 001 report, you can only report that student one time in the primary major that they are in, which means that these hours that are in public health, you do not get any funding for. So that's the scenario that we have.
And the charge is really broader than that. It could include an MBA or basically any other type of program.
Do we have a handle on how many students are impacted? How many dual degree program students do we have?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think that would depend on each institution. So if they are funded on like an MBA program, if they are at a health science center student taking medical school and they are going to Texas Tech University and getting their MBA, they get it. We get them. They get funding. TTU gets it for the MBA, and we get it. Same thing at like UTRGV. If they are in public health at UTRGV, they're going to get it both places because they have 2 separate funding models for general academics.
Same institution, they just
Right.
give points.
Right.
But does the coordinating board, when you get the CBLO and report, and there's, you track to make sure that one student is not reported in 2 programs, do you track the second program that they're eliminated from? Just wondering if there's a
I don't think they ever get that information. Mm-mm. Yeah. So.
And this is a different situation than like an MD PhD program where in that year they're an MD and they're captured and categorized as an MD, but not in their PhD year where they get moved into the
Right.
PhD. They're concurrent, simultaneous.
Correct.
All right. That, I believe, is the only change from the prior biennia's charges. So it's the identical charge, except for that last one that just got it added on. Okay. Probably going forward, we're going to need, for analysis and looking, just projected growth numbers and such from the coordinating board. I believe typically the coordinating board provides that. Is that still?
For all charges, I mean, for all formulas.
Mhm.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So we can have that prior to the
Yes.
next meeting. so
And
we
we'll
can-
need some direction on how you want us to develop those, whether it's just growth, whether it's returning to a prior year or inflation, or what factors you want us to consider.
Do you know what factors were considered last biennium when they were prepared?
Yeah, it was returning to the highest level, which I believe was 2000, 2001, making
Okay.
2/3 of the difference. Does that sound correct?
Correct. So two biennia ago, we had, the Formula Advisory Committee had set up to break it up into thirds over 3 biennia.
Right.
To reach back to the 2000, 2001 funding levels, funding rates. And so the last biennium, it was suggested we get to 2/3. So now I guess we need to consider, do we want to continue that methodology? In which case would be going all the way, suggesting that we get all the way back to the 2000, 2001 levels, or some other methodology.
Might be interesting just to see what the gap is between the 2000, 2001 funding level versus where we are in 2021. And obviously that's a big stretch. Maybe we just evaluate it based on that gap.
So if we could get the total number to get 2/3 in.
Right,
Full.
two-thirds and the full.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to compare and contrast the two.
Okay.
Might be a suggestion.
So I think that what we did provide last time was for sure fund growth. We had that in there all the way, and so that is where those numbers will come in.
Right.
And then what on top of that?
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, David, the general academics and the community colleges, we were the outliers. They
Right.
said plus inflation,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
So,
Which is correctly, this committee has never, or at least in the last 10 years, hasn't recommended an inflationary factor. Is that right?
we haven't recommended inflation. We've actually stuck to the same thing forever and ever of going back to some sort of push to get back to those 2000, 2001 rates.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Allowing inflation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the feeling is it's a large number just to get back to that and to add inflation.
We want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need that to be in the form of a motion, or we just?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
I'll move.
Okay.
What are we moving?
We run two scenarios, one of getting back to the full 2000, 2001, and then one of getting back 2/3 of the way, and review those scenarios without inflation.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
And that would include growth, correct?
Include growth, yes, sir.
Any opposed? Right. Motion carries. Any other discussion regarding the charges?
So because we have new formulas for the mission specifics, I read the backup. I know last time we talked a lot about how to understand how Houston and Tyler were calculated and how that happened. If we could maybe get some sort of understanding next time of how the new formulas work and what those calculations, because that I wasn't able to apply it in my brain when I read through that. So maybe to have some examples, I would think, would be helpful. So.
Is that a motion for the coordinating board to provide that?
Sure.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that'll come from the LBB?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We need anything further to move forward in our next meeting?
Discuss meeting times.
Do we need any information on the dual
Is there a way
degree?
to calculate the volume of duals that are in the same institution? How is that accumulated and calculated? Just the volume?
I would have to get that information. It's not huge, honestly,
Yeah.
but it's enough for a small program
Mhm.
like public health at our institution that's kind of a startup, that without that funding, it really is, it hurts them.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it's significant.
You survey a few institutions
Right.
and get that number and
Mhm.
calculate what type of impact it might be.
I think Houston actually has that same situation, is my understanding. So does anybody else know if they have that situation?
Sorry, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So I'd have to, we were just talking about the numbers on that, to see what how many students we have that are both enrolled in the School of Public Health or GSBS, ND, et cetera, Yeah, we're gonna have to look at those numbers, but we still have that same problem, yes.
But I think the distinction will be is whether or not they're enrolled in this program during the same semester, as opposed to sort of the stop-out year where they get picked up.
Right.
Different.
Correct.
Could we get a request from the coordinating board to all institutions?
Yeah, I think that would be
to
best.
respond, we have, not applicable, or we have X, Y, or Z.
Well, it'd be important to make sure that we designate within the school and then outside the school, because as you said before, I'm just thinking, the medical school and then the separate university, sometimes there is those joint programs and there are funding on both sides. So just so that we don't confuse it, we are talking about dual degrees happening within a single institution, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when we do the data request, we need to probably be really clear on that.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I don't mess it up.
For you, it's okay,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion on the charges?
So Jeff, I forgot to mention, I was going to mention too, because Ed usually mentions this, but in the materials that they sent out was the report from last biennium. And typically that's what we've started with as especially since the charges are exactly the same except for the last one. So if we could take a look at, the prior report to see if there's any specific changes we want to make, at least helps to explain what the thought process, I think, was last time.
It provides a
Very
nice
good.
template.
Yeah, it provides a really nice template. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to agenda item number 5, discussion of dates and assignments for subsequent meetings. Hopefully you have a listing of the dates for future meetings. So the next one scheduled for Wednesday, September 25th. It looks like all of them are scheduled from 11 to 1. to allow some travel time. Then the second one would be, or the third one would be October 16th, then November 6th, December 4th, and January 8th if those are required. Last biennium, we were, the committee was able to complete the process pretty much after this meeting and 2 additional meetings. So we could hopefully shoot for that same kind of goal to get through it this year, if we work through it. Any issues with the meeting dates and times?
I can't make September 25th, but I could send a proxy.
And I should probably add a note about that, because we have had several instances where someone wasn't able to attend a meeting, and it's certainly fine to send someone to sit in and listen in and take notes, but proxies wouldn't be allowed to sit at the table to participate in discussion or vote.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? If not, we'll set those meeting times and dates. Go from there. The last item on the agenda is adjournment. So, I guess, is there any other discussion topics we want to talk about today? Any other information we might need from the coordinating board or LVB? All right, if not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Carried.
Well, you got about 4 hours to get home.